Welcome to the Mitochondrial Energy Summit. I'm here with Ari Whitten. Hi, Ari.
Hey, Laura.
I am so excited for this. We're going to help everyone boost their brain power, energy, resiliency, and longevity. And Ari, we couldn't produce a Mitochondria Summit without having you co-host this. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm honored that you asked, and it's absolutely a pleasure to be co-hosting this with you.
It is wonderful. We have a lot of magic in store for our viewers. You and I have created something extraordinary here. And we're going to kick it off with this talk today about red light therapy. And so we're going to do a really educational presentation and help people really understand the ins and outs of red light, why it's important, why it's relevant, how to use it properly, how to dose it, what you should look for in a red light device. All of it. And so for people who don't know who you are, let me give an introduction to you. Ari, you are the founder of the Energy Blueprint System. It's a comprehensive lifestyle and supplement program, and you've helped more than 2 million people and counting. I mean, it's probably even higher than that by now, but you help people get optimal health, better performance, more energy. And what's really relevant for this discussion today is you are the best-selling author of this book, The Ultimate Guide to Red Light Therapy, which is the most popular book ever written on the subject of red light therapy. And you can see my copy is well worn with all my dog tags on here, my dog ears and my colorful tags, because when my clients ask me how to dose red light, what to do with it, what to use, I just reference your book. So thank you for writing this book.
My pleasure. It's actually, at this point, it's slightly outdated in terms of some of the recommendations because it came out in 2018, which feels ancient at this point. I'm about to do an update. It's really interesting, actually, because I just reached out to all the I don't want to get too detailed in the story, but the gist of it is there's a whole bunch of manufacturers that have emerged since 2018. Producing red light devices. The industry has expanded 30-fold. And unfortunately, there were lots of manufacturers making claims that were not very accurate. So I went out and asked all of these manufacturers to submit their lights to a third-party lab in Pennsylvania that's a specialty. It's like one of the only labs in the world that does specialty light testing. They have all sorts of $1 million equipment that does all this fancy, sophisticated testing on different aspects and nuances of devices that emit light and the wavelengths and the spectrum and the spread of the light and all kinds of other dimensions. And anyway, the short version of it is I'm also involved in helping to clean up the industry. I'm about to publish a new version of my book, a 2023 version of my book with a whole bunch of third-party lab data to clean up a lot of the misinformation that's out there from manufacturers that have been lying to some extent about the different aspects of the light output of their devices. So it's a wonderful book, and I thank you for the kind words. And I'm about to make it quite a bit better, updating it with that third-party data and all the research that's been done in the last 5 years since I wrote that book.
You know, Ari, this is why I love you and trust you so much. And this is why I feel really confident when I'm having my own community and my own clients take your recommendations and follow you and buy your products, because you are the first person to raise your hand and say, I created this thing and it's really amazing. And I sold a bunch of copies of it and it's helped a lot of people, but we can make it better. There are updates to it. And a lot of people are really lazy to go back to go make something better once they've already crushed it. I mean, you crushed it. Why do you have to go make this better? Because you care, because your legacy that you're leaving on this planet is really to help people. And so I just acknowledge you for that, because a lot of people wouldn't go back and put in the work to do this.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I feel some responsibility to do that, because there was one thing in that book that I got wrong, which was I used a little home device to measure the light output of certain of these light devices. And it turns out, and I should say that a whole bunch of other people in the industry started using the same device or type of device to measure their lights and putting out numbers based on that. And it actually turns out, believe it or not, that those devices are across the board inaccurate in terms of measuring these kinds of light devices. And anyway, the numbers get very inflated, and the true numbers are different. When you actually go to a third-party lab that specializes in this area, you get the real numbers, and they're quite a bit different. They're on average 30 to 40% lower.
Oh.
And anyway, so I got something wrong in that book, which is a mistake I made. I feel the need to correct it. And a whole bunch of other people got things wrong based on following what I did in that way. Mm-hmm. And I should also say, when I emailed all these different manufacturers in this industry, asking them to submit their lights to this third-party lab, I got so many emails back from these people saying, I started my business because of you, because of your book. And I don't want to take too much credit here, because there's some companies that didn't start because of my work necessarily. But it is the case that to some extent, I almost spawned an industry here with the work that I did. Mm-hmm. And I feel some responsibility to make sure that it's putting out good quality information that's accurate and truthful.
Well, again, that's why we love you, because you're so honest and responsible. So what we have created here for our audience today is nothing short of spectacular. So we're going to go through the devices, what works, how to use them, the reasons you would want to use them, what symptoms they support. And so in a moment, you're going to share your screen and walk people through a wonderful presentation. So everyone viewing, get ready. Put on your running shoes, get ready to run a marathon with us, so to speak. Get your pen and paper handy, because we're going to share a lot of information with you today. Do you want to talk about these devices behind me before I have you share your screen and explain? Because people probably can see them over my shoulder. And yeah, I'll get up and talk, and you can talk about these.
So, I kind of jumped a little ahead of myself talking about the book and sort of all the third-party lab data and all these details. But let me jump back a bit for people that are unfamiliar with this area and just say this technology, red light therapy, near infrared light therapy, is profoundly beneficial for human health and for mitochondrial function specifically. And mitochondria, as it turns out, are really at the core of human health, at the core of energy levels, at the core of resiliency, at the core of brain function, at the core of mood, at the core of the rate of aging and the risk of many, many different diseases, chronic diseases, of nutrition and lifestyle, environmental factors, which is 80+% of the chronic disease burden. Mitochondrial health is at the core of that. And this technology, red and near infrared light therapy, is one of the most profoundly beneficial things that you can do to support your mitochondrial health. So with that said, and I'm going to tell you a whole bunch of science in this presentation to back up that assertion. Now, with that said, ultimately, this is very simple, what we're actually doing. You get yourself 1 or 2 light panels, like the kind that
I'm going to turn these on while you're talking, okay? I'm going to show people what they do, okay?
Go for it. Okay. So it's literally this simple, folks. You get yourself 1 or 2 of these LED light panels, like what Laura has there, and you flip the switch to turn them on, just like that. And you let the light shine on you. And depending on your goal or what you're after, and this can be many different things, from skin anti-aging to, yeah.
So I think our audience couldn't see it because you were talking. So here, let me talk for a second. So the camera shifts to me so they can see me standing in this now. So I flipped them on and I feel like a beautiful warmth going over my whole body. So now they can see what these are like and what the experience is like. Okay, now go. Keep talking.
Okay, so it's literally this simple. You walk over to the lights, 1 or 2 of these LED panels, you flip them on, and you sit or stand next to it. And that is literally it. And it's going to be in the neighborhood of 3 to 10 minutes, most likely. Maximum maybe 20 minutes, but really in the neighborhood of 3 to 10 minutes is all that's needed. Depending on the goal, you're going to either move closer or further away from it. You're going to shine it on different parts of your body, depending on exactly what you're after. There's many different things, everything from skin anti-aging to wound healing to anti-aging mechanisms to fighting autoimmune conditions to supporting fat loss to supporting muscle gain. Recovery after exercise, many, many different things you might be trying to do with these lights. and that'll adjust the specifics. But basically, the gist of it is, get one of these lights, flip it on, be next to it for a few minutes per day. And that's literally all it takes. And as simple as that sounds, we have literally over 6,000 studies now on this subject showing absolutely profound benefits to human health and mitochondrial function in particular.
Wow. So you can see them still on behind me. I'm going to shut these off in a moment as we go through this together. There is a link on the page where you're watching this video for Red Therapy Company or Red Therapy Co. And Ari, before we switch to your presentation, it's my understanding that this company built their lights to your exact specifications. And this is one of the companies that took your advice to go back and correct things. And these lights were made to your corrections and specifications. If you could have any light you wanted, this is what the founder of the company, Red Therapy Company, created for you, was the light you wanted.
So as luck would have it, and the founder of this company was smart enough to actually reach out to me personally and say, hey, I'd like to hire you to help me build the best light on the market. And what would you do? And he paid me as a consultant to help guide the process of building these lights. So everything from the wavelength to many different aspects of the design, to the EMF blocking technology, to the pulsing aspect of the light, and numerous other aspects of what's going on with this. Even the fact that you have two set up in the way that you do right there was my idea. So, all of, basically he was the guy who was smart enough to say, hey, all right, let me go not only just start my business, but let me hire the author of this book to be my consultant to guide me to build these lights. Now, I will say in full transparency to everybody listening, I am an affiliate for many different red light companies, essentially all of them I'm an affiliate for. And I'm also in the interest of just sharing the raw third-party lab data, which I'm about to come out with the updated version of my book that does that. So I don't only have sort of an alliance with only one company. I've had companies that have tried to do that and say you can only promote our light and you can't talk about or promote anybody else's light. And I said no. And if you want me to sign that kind of deal, then I refuse. So I'm interested in just sharing the truth about these lights, but this is the one company that I actually had a hand in, a role in the design process to make them the way that I wanted to make them.
So good. Okay. So why don't we jump into our presentation, Ari? I'll let you share your screen as you're getting that set up. So this is Red Therapy Company that Ari is referring to. These are the lights behind me. And if you click the link on the page here, you'll find it on all the summit pages. You'll get access to this. They do have a coupon code for you. It's Energy23. It will take off anywhere from $25 to $50 off the unit, depending on what size unit you buy. Now, you can't see it right now because it's right behind me, but there's a smaller unit here. And Ari, we can talk about this one also at some point during this presentation, but the coupon will work for any of those units. So you're not quite sharing your screen yet.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay. How is that?
Perfect. I see you. I see this beautiful woman with red light showering her face.
Okay. So here's what I want to suggest to you. I want to get this point across, maybe above all else. So think if there was a prescription drug that was proven to have powerful anti-aging effects on the skin, to combat neurological disease, to fight depression and anxiety, to speed up fat loss, to enhance recovery from exercise, to increase strength and endurance in response to exercise, to combat certain autoimmune conditions like autoimmune hypothyroidism, to fight hair loss, and to speed healing from injury. All of which without side effects. And if you think of a drug that had all of these different kinds of effects, even if it just had two, let's say it fought depression and anxiety and combat neurological disease, or let's say it just enhanced the effects of exercise, it increased fat loss and it increased muscle gain and endurance, and it sped up your recovery from exercise. Let's say it just had anti-aging effects. Even just one of those things, but let's imagine all of them and all of those benefits with basically no side effects. If there were a drug that could do this, it would be essentially the best-selling drug of all time.
I've prescribed a lot of drugs in my time, Ari.
Have you ever seen a drug that can do all of these things, or even several of them without side effects?
Not even close. And this
Right.
is why I cannot understand why every household in developed countries don't have a red light. I mean, I'm putting my teenage daughter in front of it. She's an athlete. She has acne. She has all hormonal stuff. I'm putting her in front of these red lights. My husband is a landscape contractor. He does heavy labor his whole life. His muscles, his joints, everything is stressed to the max every day. I'm putting him in front of these lights for 10 minutes a day to help with the pain that he feels at the end of the day. I mean, his body's getting older. He's done a lot of heavy labor. And, I want support for his gallbladder and liver because we're dealing with saving his gallbladder right now. I mean, I'm in front of it because I'm 50 years old and I want to stay looking youthful for as long as I possibly can. I want to look like this. And I want the internal benefits to my body as well. And I'm always on some kind of detox protocol of some kind, trying to remove toxins that I'm exposed to in beautiful San Diego. And it's helping me detox. I mean, so many benefits.
Exactly. So basically, again, if there were a drug that could do all of this with no side effects, this would be the best-selling drug of all time. The whole world would be going crazy for it. It would be all over the media. It would be all over newspapers. It would be your doctor. The doctors would prescribe it to everyone on the planet. Your doctor would look at you like you're absolutely mentally insane if you don't take it. And again, this is literally the case. It would be this way if this treatment were encapsulated in a physical drug, because that's the culture, that's the paradigm that we live in. Now, here's what I want to get across to you. This drug, as you just implied, Laura, exists. It's just in the form of red light therapy. It's not in the form of a prescription drug from a pharmaceutical company, but the drug exists. It's in the form of those LED panels sitting behind Laura right now. Now, here's the paradigm that I want you to get the context for understanding what this is all about, because it might seem weird. Like, this seems like a weird thing. Again, because of our cultural narratives, the paradigms we're brought up in, it's like, no, health comes in a bottle. If I'm in the conventional paradigm, I take my drugs, and that's what's going to keep me from dying and having lots of diseases. And if I'm of a more natural paradigm, well, maybe I take lots of supplements. Well, I want you to understand this concept of malillumination, and it is the equivalent of malnutrition. We all know what malnutrition is. Typically that word is associated with like really poor diets, cassava only diets, and really horrific diets. Protein deficient diets in Africa and things like that. You see little kids with big swollen bellies, and that's kind of what we think of with malnutrition. But malnutrition is basically we need certain nutrients from our diet, and if we are not getting those nutrients in adequate amounts, or we could also say if we're getting certain nutrients or certain things that are not great for us in too large of amounts, like in the form of processed food and things of that nature, and sugar and refined oils and trans fats and things like that. If we're getting too much of bad stuff, or we're deficient in the nutrients we need, we have malnutrition. Now, it is also the case that humans, believe it or not, and this is not well known by most people, require certain nutrients from light. We don't call them nutrients, and most people are unaware that light interacts with human physiology in the way that it actually does. But essentially, there are many different components of natural sunlight, and those different wavelengths, those different parts of the light spectrum, you can think of them as light nutrients, and they have different physiological functions in our body. They are used by our body in different ways. They interact with our physiology and they help keep us healthy. And if we are not getting enough of those light nutrients, or if we're toxic in certain light nutrients, which maybe I'll talk a bit about, we are suffering from malillumination. And a majority of humans, especially those living in the Western world right now, are suffering from malillumination.
Did you make up this word, Ari? Is malillumination something that you created, or is that a technical diagnosis?
It's not a technical diagnosis, and it's not my original word. It's a word from a guy named Jonathan Ott, who is not well known, who wrote a book, which I actually have on the bookshelf next to me, called Light and Disease. And he was the first researcher to really look at the connections between light and human disease, and looking at doing experiments with lab rats, either in natural sunlight or under artificial lighting in indoors, separate from natural light, from window light and that sort of thing. And he looked at the health effects of these different kinds of light. And he's the one who coined this term malillumination.
I think it's brilliant. It's a brilliant term. And basically what you just said was, just like we have malnutrition and nutrients missing, we have light missing from our healing, from our health, from our bodies. So it looks like here you're going to break down the types of light.
Exactly. These are the 5 different bioactive wavelengths of light. Actually, one quick little aside that's interesting. I bought that guy's book, Health, Light and Health, I think it's what it's called. I bought his book a few years ago, and just last year, my dad was going through his old books that he's had for many, many, many decades since he was a kid. And he pulls out this old tiny little book that's like beat to hell. And he found this book that he didn't even remember that he had, from the 1950s or 60s. And he knows that I'm interested in light, so he thought to give it to me, and it was that book. And it was the original book, literally from the 1950s or 60s, from this guy. And my dad had it, somewhere in his bookshelf. So that was pretty cool.
The irony is that you actually grew up with this book in your house, literally.
Exactly.
There all along.
Exactly. So the different wavelengths that interact with human physiology, we have blue light, which primarily acts on the circadian rhythm. So we have these photons of blue light. Think when you look at a blue sky, this is blue light entering your eyes. And that blue light feeds through your eyes into receptors, and then feeds as nerve signals into a part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which regulates our circadian rhythm, which impacts on many, many different neurotransmitters and hormones that impact basically all of our physiology, our mood, our energy level, our wakefulness, our sleep cycle, our libido, pretty much everything, thyroid hormones, sex hormone, cortisol, stress hormones. It's impacting our entirety of our physiology. Blue light. Now, and again, deficiencies and toxicities. Most people have a deficiency of natural outdoor light during the day, and a toxicity in blue light in the evening before bed. We're getting way too much blue light from indoor fluorescent LED lighting, TV screens, phone screens, computer screens. And this has a profound impact on, in particular, a hormone called melatonin, which everyone's heard of, but most people don't really know the full story about, something we'll talk more about in this presentation.
Well, we have 2 amazing presentations on this summit on blue light. So great. Or excuse me, on melatonin. I meant to say melatonin. Awesome. So Jason Prawl did a whole talk on high dose melatonin. And then John Lawrence of MITOCHONDRIAL is here on this summit also, and he also alluded to high dose melatonin dosing. So make sure and catch those interviews. Okay, well, here's what I want to say to everyone listening. High dose melatonin, in my opinion, has a context. It has an appropriate context where there's plenty of research to support that it has amazing benefits, and that context is, for the most part, is specific disease states. And there's pretty amazing research in that context. However, here's what people don't know. Most people don't know, including most practitioners and experts. As I'm going to tell you about in this presentation,
one of the absolute most profound ways to elevate melatonin at the cellular level, which is itself a new scientific discovery most people don't know about, is red light therapy, which I'm going to tell you about. Okay. And again, like 99.99999% of even the most cutting edge functional medicine practitioners don't know this layer to the story. So we'll get there. But blue light's really important. Blue light also has other effects that's recently been shown to act directly on fat cells and liberating fat from fat cells. There's lots of layers to the story of how light interacts with human physiology. UV light is the part of the story that most people know at least a little bit about. They know the vitamin D story. Most people think, oh, sunlight, vitamin D. You know, I don't really need sunlight. I can just pop this vitamin D pill and that's a replacement for sunlight. No, 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 no. We get way more from the sun than just vitamin D. Vitamin D is only a small part of the story of what we get from sunlight. Obviously, I just mentioned blue light, but even with the just UV light part of the story, there's other layers to that story, especially with nitric oxide, which there's experiments in rats, for example, where they do UV light irradiation in rats that are vitamin D knockout, genetic knockout mice, meaning they can't synthesize vitamin D in response to UV light exposure. And we still see that UV light exposure has a hugely protective effect against cardiovascular disease and other diseases, irrespective of vitamin D. So we get a lot from sunlight beyond vitamin D, but not to minimize vitamin D, it's also a huge benefit of UV light exposure. Then we have far infrared, which is essentially heat. When you go into a sauna, that's called an infrared sauna. It's far infrared energy. It's wavelengths, invisible wavelengths of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is also part of the sun's energy that we feel as heat and that heat up our body and generally cause us to sweat. And then we have red light and near infrared light. And red and near infrared light act on the same mechanisms, which I'm going to tell you about. And the gist of what they do is this is really the only type of light that penetrates deeply into the human body. And like when you were a kid and you shined a flashlight up against your hand in the dark, the only light that comes out the other side of your hand is red light and near infrared light, which the human eye can't see.
We've all done that little experiment as kids, always.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. So, and all the other colors, all the other wavelengths of light are absorbed at the skin or near the skin surface. Red and near infrared light penetrate deeply into the human body. And here's the important part. It's not just photons of light that are inert that penetrate in there and don't do anything. It turns out they do all kinds of things in the human body. You know, we humans think, oh yeah, light interacts with plants. Plants use light to do this whole photosynthesis process. But most humans don't realize light also impacts their cell function in a profound way, you know, and so light is bioactive, and especially red and near infrared light is hugely bioactive and does a whole lot in human physiology, which I'm going to tell you about. So this is what malillumination looks like. I want you to get this context. You know, our ancestors didn't have to worry about getting malillumination and having to use technology to deal with this state of malillumination. They existed in a mostly outdoor lifestyle. They got lots and lots of sun exposure. And hey, if you live that kind of lifestyle where you are getting lots of sun exposure on a daily basis, the truth is red light therapy is probably not that necessary for you. But if you're like most modern humans and you are not living like hunter-gatherers live with lots of hours of daily sun exposure, this is a necessity for you. This is hugely important. It is pretty much a guarantee that you have malillumination. And what we're learning about here and what Laura has right behind her, these light panels, is the correction for this. It is the main way that you can fix it, a very easy and simple way to fix it.
And I know, Ari, that I have malillumination because I spend, even though I'm sitting in front of a big window in front of me that you can't see, the sun isn't shining directly on me. Plus, the sun coming through the glass is not the same as being out in the sun. And I spend the majority of all daylight hours right here at this desk working. And so it's critical for me to get in front of these panels every day.
Yep. I agree. I live in Costa Rica. I spend usually at least a couple hours a day in the sun between surfing and tennis, and going for walks with my dogs and things like that. And I still use this technology.
Mhm.
So it's, it's amazingly beneficial even for someone living the way I live. Okay, so diseases linked with sunlight deficiency, just to emphasize this point: neurodegenerative diseases, dozens of types of cancer, obesity, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, many, many other diseases, heart disease, hugely linked with it. Now, most importantly is what's called all-cause mortality, risk of dying from any cause. And we have this study from Sweden on almost 30,000 Swedish women showing that avoiding sun exposure is a risk factor for all-cause mortality that is on par with smoking a pack of cigarettes per day. That is how big of a risk factor it is to avoid sun exposure. They actually quantified it in this way. They looked at different categories of women as far as whether they got lots of sun exposure or whether they were avoiding sun exposure and got very little. And they found that the women avoiding sun exposure had the same risk of death, died at essentially the same ages compared to women who were chronic smokers who smoked a pack a day.
This is really scary for women who are avoiding sun for anti-aging reasons to keep their skin youthful. And I also see the title of this study has to do with melanoma. So what I'm hearing is, while our Western dermatologists are saying stay out of the sun to prevent melanoma, if you stay out of the sun, you actually have a higher risk. You're at higher risk of melanoma.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too deep into this, but just to briefly talk about this, the reason that all-cause mortality is very important is, let's just imagine, as a thought experiment, a drug that is highly effective in lowering your risk of Alzheimer's disease, just as an example, okay? And it takes your chances, let's say your chances of getting Alzheimer's disease, just to make up numbers, were 50%. You had a 50% chance of developing Alzheimer's. And if you take this drug every day from the time you're age 50 and beyond, then it will reduce your chances of getting Alzheimer's from 50% down to 5%, okay? And you might think, wow, that's amazing. Wow, what an incredible thing. And if you just look only at the only data you're examining, the only output that you're examining is risk of Alzheimer's, there's no question that this is an amazingly beneficial thing to do. But let's say you expand the outcomes that you're examining, and you find out that while that drug is highly effective in reducing your risk of Alzheimer's, it increases your risk of a dozen types of cancer by 90%. And it increases your risk of diabetes by 70%. And it predisposes you to fat gain, so your risk of obesity goes up by 130%, and so on and so forth, okay? Now, the big picture of what that drug is doing, is it beneficial or is it harmful, right? So if we look at things in a very myopic way, we might conclude something is beneficial. Avoidance of sun exposure is very important because it reduces your risk of this type of skin cancer, okay? Maybe that's true. And I've looked at the data extensively on melanoma, by the way, and it's actually not true for melanoma. Indoor office workers have higher rates of melanoma compared to outdoor workers who get 10 times more sun. The short version of that story, without getting too detailed, is actually intermittent sun exposure is what's most dangerous, not chronic sun exposure. Intermittent sun exposure, where you don't get sun normally, and then occasionally you get lots of sun and then you get burnt, you get way more sun than your skin is capable of tolerating, you get burned, you get DNA damage, that predisposes to melanoma. But chronic, regular outdoor time and sun exposure actually doesn't increase risk of melanoma, it decreases it. Outdoor workers have lower risk of melanoma than indoor workers. But let's just say, as a thought experiment, sun exposure increased your risk of melanoma. And then one might conclude, oh, well, I don't want to get melanoma, I got to avoid the sun. But if you expand the full picture of what you're looking at to all diseases and risk of dying from anything, That's what actually matters. And that's what all-cause mortality is. And we know that all-cause mortality, in terms of that, avoidance of sun exposure is equivalent to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. That's how much it increases your risk of dying from any cause, from all causes. So not a good idea.
Not.
Get your sun exposure is the bottom line here.
I'm glad we went down this little rabbit hole, Ari, because I know in my own practice, lots of people are confused about melanoma. So I think that was a worthwhile rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's important context. Okay, so there's another type of light deficiency other than sort of this story of vitamin D that most people are unaware of, and it is near infrared and red light deficiency. For people to understand this, the electromagnetic spectrum consists of everything from gamma rays and X-rays to ultraviolet spectrum to the visible light spectrum, which is just this tiny little sliver here, which is Roy G. Biv, the colors of the rainbow that the human eye and brain visual system is capable of seeing. Then we get back into stuff that the human eye and brain can't see, the infrared part of the spectrum. And then we get into things like radio waves, radar waves, and things like that. Okay, so this is the electromagnetic spectrum. What we're talking about here is this very small sliver in the red and infrared part of the spectrum, only part of the infrared part of the spectrum. It's red and near infrared.
So crazy that tiny spectrum is so important, right? With all the wavelengths of light, when we focus on this narrow range right here, you can have so much benefit.
Exactly. And it's this, I just want to show this really quick. It's this specific part of the spectrum from 600 nanometers to, you could say to about 1,000, but really in the 900 nanometers. And as I said to you before with the flashlight thing when we were a kid, it's specifically these wavelengths, this part of the light spectrum, red and near infrared, that penetrates deeply into human tissue. The other parts of the wavelengths get absorbed very much in the surface tissue, the blue, the ultraviolet, they're getting absorbed very much in the surface layers. When you get into orange, amber wavelengths, it starts to penetrate a bit deeper. And then you get into red and near infrared. Now it can actually go inches deep into the human body. So what can it actually do? What is this part of the light spectrum? How is it that humans have co-evolved for millions of years in the sun on planet Earth, such that this part of the spectrum has all these profound effects on on human physiology? And this is what it actually does. And we have over 6,000 studies showing this wavelengths in this part of the light spectrum has anti-aging effects in the skin, lowers inflammation, enhances fat loss, improves hormones, sex hormones like testosterone, has beneficial impact on the brain in terms of cognitive decline and neurodegenerative disease and depression and anxiety, enhances fertility, improves oral health, improves wound healing, improves skin anti-aging effects, enhances recovery, on and on and on. So many amazing effects, and I'm going to show you the science. This is a quote from Michael Hamblin, who is a Harvard professor. He's the author of the most popular textbook, clinical textbook for practitioners and clinicians using this technology. I'm the author of the most popular book on the subject for lay people. He's the author of this 500-page, trying to see if I have it next to me. I do not at the moment. I don't want to go search for it, but I have it's probably a 500 or 600-page clinical textbook for practitioners, the textbook of photomedicine, something like that. But he's the most prolific researcher. I think he's got over 1,000 studies that he's done on this subject. And what he says on red and near infrared light therapy, and this is also called low-level light therapy or photobiomodulation. Photo is light, bio is biology, and modulation is change. It's using light to change your biology. Mm-hmm. He says this is more than an alternative kind of medical treatment. It is a whole new method to control cellular processes and modulate living organisms by precise alterations in the chemistry of biomolecules. Okay. So how does this work? Let's talk mechanisms. How is this interacting with our physiology? Again, I mentioned blue light before, going into our eyes, feeding back into the circadian clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus in our brain. All these different neurotransmitters and hormones are affected. UV light hits our skin and leads to the synthesis of a hormone that we call vitamin D, which has an impact and an influence on over 2,000 genes in our body, is involved in immune health, musculoskeletal health, and many other aspects of our physiology. How does this red and near infrared light thing work? Well, here's a list. If you go into the textbook written by Michael Hamblin, you'll find a list like this of like 50 different mechanisms that we know are affected by red light.
That's a lot.
And the ERK FOX M1 pathway and the PPAR gamma and the RUNX2 pathway and the transforming growth factor pathway and the hypoxia inducible factor, on and on and on, right? And all of this sounds very overwhelming. I'm going to simplify this for you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Because I know all of that. That's not the slide to take a picture of. That's not what matters.
Yes.
What matters is what Ari's going to break down for you.
So here's what it boils down to. There's three primary mechanisms that you need to understand as far as how this works. The first one is the photons of red and near infrared light directly interact with our mitochondria and stimulate mitochondrial energy production. Okay, so there's a very direct, very simple way. Light photons, literally, physically, the photons are interacting with part of the mitochondria, enhancing the ability of the mitochondria to produce energy. Okay. Number two is hormetic stress. And this is something that you're gonna hear from me in many of the interviews that I do in this summit. In particular, the one that I do with Datis Karazian is something that we emphasize there. And hormetic stress is basically transient metabolic stress, beneficial stress that stimulates adaptations that make us stronger. So exercise is the classic hormetic stressor, but also things like intermittent fasting, heat exposure like saunas, cold exposure like cold plunging, breath holding practices, certain phytochemicals, certain other chemicals, and red and near infrared light therapy are hormetic stressors. It is a transient, low-level, beneficial stress that stimulates adaptations that make you stronger and more resilient. And a lot of that has to do with how the mitochondria respond. And the third one also involves mitochondria, and it's something called retrograde signaling. For a long time in biology, the central dogma of biology was that DNA was the big boss. DNA controls everything else. DNA, your genes, give the instructions for what proteins are made and how your biology behaves. And we now know that whole paradigm got upended by the discovery of the field of epigenetics and the realization that actually our genes are responding. Which genes get turned on and which get turned off is a function of the inputs from the environment. And what is a huge factor in sensing those inputs from the environment and then translating those messages back to the nucleus of the cell that contains our DNA and deciding which genes get turned on and which genes get turned off is our mitochondria. Our mitochondria are sending signals, are sensing things, sensing the environment, and then sending signals back to the nucleus of the cell. So it's actually, in large part, what's going on at the mitochondrial level that is deciding which genes get expressed or not expressed. And red and near infrared light therapy is a way that we send signals to our mitochondria to beneficially modulate gene expression, literally your DNA, what genes are getting turned on and off.
Wow.
So the first mechanism, just stimulating ATP production at the level of the mitochondria. So these photons of light are directly interacting with our mitochondria in a way that stimulates mitochondrial energy production. So this is a paper from Michael Hamblin. That's the same Harvard researcher I mentioned before, a Harvard professor. He said several pieces of evidence suggest that mitochondria are responsible for the cellular response to red, visible, and near infrared light. And he goes on to describe the different experiments. This is basically what's going on. We have these different complexes on the respiratory chain or the electron transport chain in our mitochondria, complex 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this red and near infrared light photons act on a part of these complexes in our electron transport chain called cytochrome C oxidase. And it's literally like a receptor for photons of light. So it's put there, it's in our biology. It's designed in such a way to accept photons of light, specifically in the red and near infrared spectrum, and that facilitates our mitochondria being able to efficiently produce ATP. Another way of saying this,
quick, Ari. Oh,
yeah.
sorry. So literally, we were not engineered to be inside and out of the sun. We literally are what I'm hearing you say is we are engineered to accept light as a way to help us make energy. So sorry, I interrupted you, but that's what I'm hearing here.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So you said exactly what I wanted people to get from it. So thank you.
Okay, good.
Okay. So and this just emphasizes it. So when we look at the absorption of light by the cytochrome C oxidase, it is specifically only in the red part of the spectrum, 600 to 700 nanometers, and the near infrared part of the spectrum that cytochrome C oxidase, this part of the mitochondria, absorbs light. It's only those parts of the light spectrum that activate the mitochondria in this way. Okay. The way that this works is nitric oxide, largely due to various kinds of stressors, can build up at the mitochondria, and nitric oxide competes with oxygen for sort of entry into the electron transport chain in mitochondria to help facilitate energy production. When you get red and near infrared light exposure in there, it boots out the nitric oxide and allows oxygen in to facilitate healthy energy production at the mitochondrial level. So again, you can think of this as a required essential nutrient. In the same way we think about food, we have certain essential nutrients that our body needs to function properly. Red and near infrared light are an essential light nutrient for your mitochondria to produce energy efficiently. Okay. Mechanism number 2, hormetic stress. Again, this is transient metabolic stress that, by stressing us out temporarily, stimulates our body to make adaptations that ultimately make it stronger. Literally in response to exercise, to heat, to cold, to red and near infrared light, it increases autophagy. It increases the robustness of the internal antioxidant system. So the next time that we're exposed to oxidative stress, that internal antioxidant system can neutralize that stress more efficiently. There's many other mechanisms, heat shock proteins, FOXO3. There's several other mechanisms that are involved in sort of building up the armor that protects us against damage from future exposures to stress. But this is basically how it works. You use, in the same way that challenging your bicep muscle by lifting a heavy weight stimulates that muscle to grow bigger and stronger, we do the exact same thing internally at the cellular level and at the mitochondrial level. We turn challenges into strength, okay? And human biology is designed to respond in highly beneficial ways to certain types of biological challenges, certain types of hormetic stressors. Exercise, fasting, heat, cold, red and near infrared light, breath holding practices are the main ones. And as we build these things up, basically, we become, just as muscle grows stronger in response to challenge, we become stronger internally at the mitochondrial level and in terms of our oxidant free radical neutralization system. We become more strong and more robust in our ability to prevent damage upon exposure to future stressors. So red and near infrared light is a way that we do that. Number 3, as I mentioned before, retrograde signaling. So when we use when we have red and near infrared light exposure, it interacts with our mitochondria, which then sends signals back to the nucleus of the cell that contains our DNA. That influences which genes get turned on and off. It influences the proteins that are made, which ultimately dictates, is the cell functioning in a healthy or unhealthy way? So we can literally influence very directly whether we are expressing healthy or unhealthy genes by using red and near infrared light. Mechanism number 4, and this is what I was alluding to earlier about melatonin. This is a new discovery, new scientific discovery, really just in the last year or two. It used to be thought that melatonin was produced by the pineal gland. Okay, so we have the pineal gland in the brain, and the primary thing that is influencing it is blue light entering the eyes, again, feeding back into the circadian clock in the brain. And that blue light signal, and specifically the blue light suppresses melatonin levels from the pineal gland. And then the absence of blue light, when the sun goes down, when we have darkness, the pineal gland starts producing more melatonin. And that's been the whole story around melatonin. It's produced by the pineal gland in the brain. It's involved in sleep. It's a sleep hormone, right? That's the melatonin story as it's existed. Now, several years ago, it was discovered that melatonin, it turns out, is the most important mitochondrial antioxidant in existence. And that our cells, our mitochondria throughout our whole body need to be bathed, are designed to be bathed in mitochondria every single night. And
melatonin. Mitochondria need to be bathed in
mitochondria are designed to be bathed in melatonin every single night. And that melatonin acts as a direct antioxidant, which helps protect mitochondria, and it interacts with our internal antioxidant defense system, things like glutathione and superoxide dismutase and catalase and heme oxygenase, these very powerful antioxidant and detoxification enzymes inside of our cells, inside of our mitochondria, that ultimately protect our cells from damage and aging. And melatonin recharges that system every night. Well, it turns out if you, and sort of that's how the story was talked about. And we knew that artificial light at night, when you get too much blue light from indoor lighting and screens, computers, phones, things like that, that it suppresses the melatonin production from the pineal gland massively. Okay. Now, what's new, and largely thanks to the work of sort of legendary melatonin researcher named Russell Reiter, who's been doing melatonin research for decades, they did experiments a few years ago on mice where they removed the pineal gland, and then they measured levels of melatonin at the mitochondrial level in cells throughout the body. And they found that mice that had no pineal gland had the same levels of melatonin at the level of mitochondria throughout their body as mice with a pineal gland. That removing the pineal gland source of melatonin didn't influence how much melatonin was actually in their body. And what they then discovered after that is that melatonin is such an important molecule for mitochondrial health that millions and millions of years ago, mitochondria, I should say, evolved the ability to produce their own supply of melatonin. Okay, so all the mitochondria throughout our whole body, in our brain, in our muscles, in our bones, in our liver, and our intestines, they all produce melatonin. It doesn't only come from the pineal gland. It's coming from the mitochondria throughout our whole body. Guess what, Laura? Guess what? The number one thing is that stimulates those mitochondria to produce melatonin.
red light.
You got it. So that's the big discovery. Interestingly, it turns out actually exercise and several other types of hormetic stress actually cause the mitochondria to produce a lot more melatonin. But red and near infrared light stimulate it very strongly, and this is quite an amazing discovery. So there's lots going on with melatonin. We have other people in the summit that are speaking about this, but melatonin has a very profound effect on protecting mitochondria and preventing some of the processes that drive cellular aging, senescence, impaired autophagy, accumulation of of cellular damage, loss of healthy protein folding, and so on. And melatonin is directly fighting those processes. Again, it's also interacting with our internal antioxidant defense system, the glutathione system in particular, and recharging that system every night while we sleep. The big shift in thinking is to realize that this doesn't only come from our pineal gland at night while we sleep, and it doesn't only come from taking melatonin supplements. I would actually argue that the most important source and the most powerful source, and the one that is most likely to be regulated in a balanced way without side effects, is by using red and near infrared light to stimulate your own cellular mitochondrial supply of melatonin.
So powerful. This may be the single most critical point that people can get out of this presentation today. Ari, in the 10 minutes or so that we have left, believe it or not, we've been talking for near an hour already, but in the time we have left, I want to make sure we cover dosing and whatever other high points you want. So I just want to have you thinking in your
you got to give me more. You got to give me more than 10 minutes, and I'll skim the rest.
Okay.
Okay.
Done.
Okay. So I want to emphasize this because again, this is a new discovery. I think it's going to turn out that melatonin is playing a way bigger role in human physiology and human health and disease prevention and aging, and than people realize. And I think that red and near infrared light and sunlight are way more important than people realize. Humans need sunlight, and we need red and near infrared light. It's a big, big aspect of slowing down the aging process and preventing disease at the cellular level. Okay. So there's other potential mechanisms that I could talk about here. I'm going to skip over this. Easy water, Gerald Pollack's work. It turns out red and near infrared light also influence essentially the health, the structure of the water in our cells. And there's research suggesting this also relates to how efficiently mitochondria work. There's other more theoretical mechanisms at play, including how light, specifically red light, interacts with chlorophyll metabolites. So we get certain compounds from our diet. This can interact with light, and it turns out that this also influences energy production and mitochondrial function at the cellular level. And ultimately, what this is doing is translating into increases in cell energy production, decreased inflammation, speeding up wound healing, boosting fat loss, and so on and so forth. Okay, so some of the benefits: reversing skin aging. And I won't go over all the studies, but you can see some of the studies, and maybe we can do, after I get through this, Laura, you can ask me any questions and I can show you some studies if you'd like.
And I just want to say, I know you're coming out with the updated version of this book, but here's the beauty about Ari's work is in the back of this book are all the studies that you reference. I mean, literally, it's all in here, everything. I mean, your books are very complete.
Yeah. So as far as reversing skin aging, it's been shown to reduce signs of damage, DNA damage, and reducing wrinkles, reducing color patches and hyperpigmentation, enhancing collagen synthesis and fibroblast production of collagen. It's been shown to combat other skin conditions like acne, keloids, vitiligo, burns, and psoriasis, and so on, speeding up wound healing, et cetera. Along in the same vein, it's been shown to reduce cellulite, really through the same mechanisms of supporting healthy collagen and skin health more broadly. Collagen and elastin, boosting blood circulation and blood vessel health. And
I mean, this whole cellulite thing is huge. I mean, do you know how many women want to know, how do I get rid of cellulite?
Totally. And it's by supporting healthy skin more than anything. Okay, skipping over studies. Hair loss and regrowing hair. Basically, there are three phases that hair goes through: the anagen, telogen, and catagen phases. And one is sort of new growth, and one is sort of stalling and dying off. And basically, red and near infrared light supports the growth phase and the maintenance phase, and minimizes the amount of hair follicles that are dying.
Can I pause you? I know we're hurrying, but I really want to spend 1 second on hair loss. So there's different types of hair loss. There's hair loss that is just part of, as we age, our hair thins. Then there's autoimmune hair loss. Are there studies that show even people with an autoimmune condition causing their hair loss can benefit from this?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not aware of any studies on autoimmune hair loss.
Okay, well,
Just
something to
just based
research.
on the mechanisms, I would suspect that it would help at least a little bit. But if it's driven by autoimmunity, I don't know how much it's going to impact that. Now, what I will show you in a second here, relating to autoimmunity, is that it can also slow down autoimmune processes. But let me get there in a second. So again, by supporting collagen production, it's also going to speed up wound healing. And we have lots and lots of evidence supporting that various kinds of wounds, everything from cuts to diabetic ulcers to athletic injuries and sprained ankles, everything heals faster. There's studies in athletes with sprained ankles where they go with no red light therapy or with red light therapy, and the ones that do red light therapy get back on the field literally twice as fast. Instead of being out for 6 weeks, they're out for 3 weeks.
Wow.
And it's very consistent in its ability to essentially double the rate of healing of injuries of various kinds. And it works in all tissues. It works in skin, it works in tendons, it works in bone, it works in muscle. Okay. And the reason why is because the reason why it has all of these different effects, everything from skin effects to supporting hair follicles to lots and lots of other areas that I'm going to tell you about. It sounds almost like snake oil, that it could affect all these different physiological systems. But the reason why is very simple. Virtually all of the energy that virtually all of the trillions of cells in our body run on, from our brain to our thyroid gland to our muscles to our skin to our bone, they're doing their jobs based on the energy produced by mitochondria. If the energy supply is better, if those cells are producing energy in greater abundance and more efficiently, those cells work more efficiently. They do their job better. If they're brain cells, they do their brain cell job better. If they're thyroid gland cells, they produce thyroid hormone better. If they're muscle cells, they produce strength and energy better to support muscle function better. Everything works better when the energy supply to those cells is better. And this is one of the essential nutrients to support the energy supply of your cells. That's why it affects essentially everything in a beneficial way.
That's such a good explanation. Ari, that's such a good explanation. I mean, everybody has been in a situation where the electricity was cut off at your house and nothing works. Don't open the fridge. You don't want to lose the cold air in the fridge. You can't run, your TV anymore. You can't hold air conditioning or heating in some cases if it's not a gas. I mean, it's no different, right? You shut off the energy in your body, it's not going to run. You boost the energy in your body, everything runs.
That's right. So it's also been shown in the context of chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia to reduce pain symptoms and to increase energy levels. And again, you're supporting energy production at the cellular level. So enhanced quality of life, decreased pain, decreased muscle spasm, decreased morning stiffness, decreased total tender point number in fibromyalgia cases, on and on and on. Hashimoto's hypothyroidism. There are several amazing studies here where in one study from 2010, 47% of the hypothyroid patients who just received 10 sessions of red light therapy maintained normal thyroid hormones without thyroid medication at the end of the 9-month follow-up. 47% of people were able to do that. They also noticed a decline in TPO antibodies by 39%. And there's several other studies where's the one I'm looking for? Okay, in this one from 2003 in the Ukraine, they found 50 to 75% of people who had post-surgical hypothyroidism were able to decrease their medication requirements by using red light therapy. And there's several other studies where they've shown that a huge proportion of people are either able to reduce or completely eliminate their thyroid hormone medication as a result of doing red light therapy. Cancer, I'm going to skip over this one. Don't use red light therapy direct on cancer tumors themselves. But when it's used systemically, it's been shown to enhance cancer survival in cancer patients of various kinds.
So what you're saying is don't put it right over cancer. Like if it's an internal cancer, you wouldn't use some kind of, it's okay on the outside of your body if you have cancer to use red light.
Basically don't use it directly on tumors.
Got it.
Just to err on the side of caution. It's actually hasn't been studied. We don't know yet, but just to err on the side of caution, basically researchers in that field maybe are saying like, if you've got a tumor here on your arm, don't do red light therapy direct on the tumor. Do it on other parts of your body to enhance overall immune function, to help your immune system better fight off that cancer. Okay. Other types of autoimmune conditions have also been shown to benefit from this. Rheumatoid arthritis, for example. There's new studies that have come out very recently showing improvements in eye health using red light therapy. Depression and anxiety, several studies here showing it combats depression and anxiety in a very significant way. This is 7 out of 10 achieved remission based on the 6 out of 10 achieved a score of remission in depression based on the HAM-D scale, the Hamilton Depression score. And in terms of anxiety, 7 out of 10 achieved remission on the Hamilton anxiety score. So powerful effects there by using this on your brain. And again, because this light penetrates deep into the tissues of the body, it actually has the capacity to penetrate not only through the skin, not only through layers of fat, but also even through the human skull, so that you get photons of light directly into the brain. Improving cognitive performance, again, for the same reason, and combating neurological disease, improving fertility. And let me show you some of my favorite benefits here. One is that's relevant to a lot of people is combating osteoarthritis and reducing pain. This is a huge thing for a lot of people, and it's very effective for that. Oral health and fighting gum disease in particular, improving gum health is another major one. And let me skip ahead here since I know we're running short on time. Actually, I do want to mention this one, stem cells. Mm-hmm. Actually, this is a bit of a deeper discussion, so maybe I'll just do a very, very short version. The short version is this. There's a lot of research to show that even, our whole focus of the health care paradigm right now as it stands, especially the conventional medical paradigm, even a large extent to the alternative and functional medicine paradigm, is about disease. It's focused on disease, and it's focused on understanding disease and reversing disease. And we all grow up in a cultural narrative where we think, if only we had a cure for heart disease, if only we had a cure for cancer, then everything would be so much better. We'd be so much healthier. We'd live so much longer. Here's the reality. There's a lot of research that exists. Very few people are aware of it, but there's research that exists that shows that even if we tomorrow completely cured all cancers, it actually would have a very minimal impact on overall lifespan of our population. Even if we had a cure for all heart disease, which is the #1 killer in our society, it would have a minimal impact on our overall lifespan, 1 or 2 years at the most. And on for every other major killer, neurological disease, whatever other types of major diseases that you want to, metabolic syndrome and obesity and things of this nature. And the reason why is that if you let's say you cured all cancers tomorrow, well, if you didn't die from cancer at age 79, now you're dying at heart disease at age 80. And if you didn't die from heart disease at age 80, now you're dying at neurological disease at age 81. Okay, and it turns out that actually, even if we cured all those diseases, lifespan wouldn't extend very much because most people are still dying of quote unquote old age, which is multi-organ system failure, by about age 85 on average. Okay. So this whole pursuit of if only we cured this disease and if only we cured that disease is very misguided for this reason, because the main thing that is actually dictating whether we live closer to 120 or 85, 120 being the sort of genetically maximal human lifespan, is actually the rate of cellular aging. So again, the focus shouldn't be about reversing this or that disease. It should be about optimizing cellular health and mitochondrial health so that you slow the overall rate of aging. Red light therapy and near-infrared light therapy do this in multiple different ways through the mechanisms I've described so far. And in particular, I think melatonin is going to be a big part of that story. Another way that they do this is actually by supporting stem cell production and proliferation in our body. When we produce our own supply of stem cells in abundance, we repair the damaged cells. And by repairing the damaged cells, we accumulate much less damage. We slow the rate of aging. So this is another way that, forgive me for the lengthy explanation there, but I think it's important for people to understand that if you want to live longer and you want to be healthier, you want to not only have a longer lifespan, but a longer health span, slowing the rate of cellular aging is really where it's at. And things like optimizing mitochondrial health, mitochondrial biogenesis through hormetic stress, and supporting melatonin levels at the cellular level, mitochondrial production of melatonin, and stem cell proliferation. These are some of the most powerful ways that we can do that.
I thank you, Ari, for taking a moment to break that down, because that was profound. It truly was. We are so fixated on solving disease rather than enhancing cellular health. It's true.
100%. Okay, there's some research on neurological disease. I want to get to this because this is some of my favorite aspects of how red and near-infrared light work. Fat loss, I should say, and muscle gain, strength, endurance, and recovery. Basically, red and near-infrared light pair synergistically with exercise in an amazing way. There's research showing, depending on which outcome you measure, that red light therapy essentially amplifies, oftentimes by about double, whatever specific benefit you're looking at when it comes to exercise. So this is Michael Hamblin again saying, sports medicine will benefit from photobiomodulation, red light therapy, because both professional and amateur athletes can better recover from intense exercise, and the process also aids training regimens. In the near future, sports agencies must deal with laser doping by at least openly discussing it, because the aforementioned beneficial effects and the preconditioning achieved by laser and LED irradiation will highly improve athletic performance. Basically saying athletes will perform much better and recover much faster as a result of this technology. Let me just show you a couple visuals to get this. There's many, many different mechanisms by which this supports optimal performance and enhances recovery from exercise. This is doing LED exposure and then having them do exercise, showing that there was a 27% increase in the amount of work that was able to be done with just 1 to 2 minutes of red light therapy exposure on the muscle groups that were being used, and a significant reduction in the amount of lactate produced by the muscles. So the muscles are doing more work and producing less lactic acid as a byproduct.
This is pre-workout. You're getting the red light exposure pre-workout.
Yeah, and I recommend doing it pre-workout and post-workout. I had a discussion with Michael Hamblin several years ago, and I said, there's all this research, some of it does it pre-workout to enhance performance. Other research does it, applied it after the workout to enhance recovery or enhance adaptations to the exercise. I'm like, I'm so confused. What do I do? Do I use it before or after? He's like, use it both.
Yeah, and I just want to put this into context for people viewing who might not be athletes, because the majority of our viewers are not professional athletes. And yeah, Ari's showing studies that were done on athletes, because for obvious reasons we do studies on that group of people. But this is going to benefit even somebody who has a non-aggressive workout routine compared to an athlete.
Yeah, and actually a lot of the studies that have been done in this area are not necessarily done on athletes. They're done on regular people who are just performing exercise.
Great.
So this was a study where they had a control group, which is this bar in blue here, the training group, and then the training group plus light exposure in addition to the training. And you can see this is muscle size. You can see significant gains above training alone. Sometimes close to double, 60 to 80 to 100% improvements over just exercise alone by doing light therapy in addition to the exercise. This in terms of the muscle size gains, and this is in terms of performance. You can see in terms of peak torque generated, how strong the muscles were. It's improving that as well. Improving fat loss. I want to say a caveat here, which is I want to be clear that red light therapy will not be super effective for fat loss in the absence of a nutrition and lifestyle and exercise regimen that is supportive of fat loss.
So if it's not a hack. Yeah.
If you're just expecting to use light therapy and have fat melt off without being in the overall context of a diet and lifestyle that's supporting fat loss, it will not work very well, but it pairs very, very, very well. Like, again, just showing you these graphs here to give you a sense of this. Like in the control group that didn't do any exercise, there was really no benefit, no improvements in muscle size. Okay, if you add exercise, now you've got a nice effect. You're boosting muscle size. And if you add light on top of that, now you have an even better effect. And a similar thing exists with fat loss. You got to have the base stimulus of exercise and diet to support fat loss. But if you add light therapy into it, it amplifies that greatly. And I'll show you, and there are studies where they show inches of fat lost off different parts of the body. And they have low-level laser therapy, low-level light therapy, body contouring. You can go to clinics and get this done, but you can do it at home with LED panels. And this is
like these. When you say LED panels, that's exactly what's behind me is LED panels.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So in terms of fat mass lost, this is exercise alone, and this is exercise with light therapy. So instead of a 6% loss of body fat, you had an 11%, almost double by adding light therapy. In terms of insulin levels, the exercise only group had a 19% reduction. The exercise plus light therapy group had a 38% reduction, double. In terms of insulin sensitivity, it improved by 22% in the exercise only group, almost double, 40% in the exercise plus light therapy group. So you can see literally it's acting on mechanisms, including insulin and insulin sensitivity, to modulate fat loss. Okay, now real quick, dosing. There's lots of complexity that we could talk about, and I could take you through the formulas to calculate dosing. But since we're simplifying it here, and I don't need to take you through navigating all the different lights on the market and the different light output, some lights are very weak, some lights are very strong. The dosing here is very simple. If you get lights from Red Therapy Co., it basically just boils down to this. If you're using it for superficial issues like skin anti-aging or wound healing on the surface, you're looking at using it for somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 seconds to 5 minutes, really 2 to 5 minutes, I would say is what's going to be optimal for that. So 2 to 5 minutes on any area that you're trying to get skin anti-aging effect. So most likely the face, 2 to 5 minute treatment, boom, you're done. That's all you need for the day. You could do it every day, or you could do it 4 times a week, something like that. For deeper tissues, you need longer times because you're trying to get more of those light photons beneath the layer of the skin into those deeper tissues. You want to use the light from closer up, more like 3 or 6 inches away, And you want to be doing it more in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 minutes on each area that you're trying to treat. So let's say you've got a shoulder injury, you want to treat that, or you've got a knee injury or a hip injury or something like that, or you want to use it on your leg muscles since you just did a hard leg workout, or your back muscles if you did a hard back workout. You do right after your workout, you go and you do 5 or 10 minutes on the area that you just exercised, and you're going to notice you're much less sore. You're going to recover way faster. You're going to feel good and strong again. You're going to recover your energy way faster. And you are going to actually amplify the strength and the muscle gains or the endurance effects of the exercise, depending on which kind of exercise you're doing. You're going to enhance all of that dramatically while you recover faster and feel better quicker.
So I have a question here. If you go back to this 20-minute, if you go back to the last slide, it says you suggest no more than 20 minutes total treatment time. So here's the deal with what happens to me. My body craves this so much. I love it so much. And this is my me time. I'm a person who likes to habit stack. So what can I do while I'm doing red light that's also filling me up? And so I will read. And I'm also getting it into my eyes. I don't put eye covers on. My eyes are open. I'm reading during this time. And I find myself wanting to stay in there for 30, 40. Like I literally have to force myself to be like, okay, treatment's done. Like it's addicting. Treatment's done. I need to stop now.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, here's the bottom line. There's something called a biphasic dose response. And it's also called the Arndt-Schulz law by the two physiologists who were credited.
It must be Germans.
Who were credited with discovering this. But basically, it's a principle that extends to almost everything, including exercise and including sun exposure and including the general principle even applies to something as simple as water consumption or food consumption. And the principle is this: when it comes to exercise or red light therapy, if you don't do any or you do very little, you don't get any benefits. And if you do way too much, you create more harm than good. So if you go out and you're not a very fit person and you decide tomorrow, I think I'm going to go for an ultra marathon 50-mile race, you are not doing yourself any favors. You are just creating a lot of harm in your body, and it is not beneficial for you to do that amount of exercise. The same as I mentioned in the context of melanoma and sun exposure. If your skin is not conditioned for sun exposure and you haven't built a good base layer of a tan, melanin, which is your body's own protective mechanism to minimize DNA damage, it's like an internal sunscreen, and then you go out and go on a vacation to Hawaii and get 8 hours of sun, you've now caused yourself a whole bunch of DNA damage. That doesn't mean sun is bad. It doesn't mean exercise is bad. It means you did way too much relative to what your body is conditioned to handle. Okay. And this principle of a biphasic dose response is also true. Like everything becomes toxic if you do way too much of it. If you drink 2 gallons of water in the next 10 minutes, pure, great, pristine spring water, if you drink 2 gallons of it in the next 10 minutes, you can cause yourself permanent brain damage and put yourself into a coma and maybe die. It's legitimate. Look it up. Okay. If you eat too much food, you put on body fat, you become insulin resistant, and that itself is toxic to your cells and toxic to your mitochondria. Even if it's healthy food, if you ate way too much of it, it becomes toxic. Exercise becomes toxic, sun becomes toxic, everything is toxic if you do way too much. So the same is true, of course, with red and near infrared light therapy. If you were to do hours and hours of this every day, it would create more harm than good. And what we need to do is, like everything else, you get the dose right. Mm-hmm. And if you do enough to get the benefits and you don't way overdo it to create harm, then you're in what's called the Goldilocks zone, which is what we need to be in with food, what we need to be in with water, with exercise, with sun exposure, with everything else in our life. And if you're in that Goldilocks zone, you get the benefits with no harm. Perfect. And every specific thing has, sort of how easy it is to overdo it and end up in the toxic zone. And actually, relative to something like exercise, it's way harder to overdo red and near infrared light. It's way easier for a person, especially a person who's not very well, who has chronic illness, to overdo exercise to the point where they feel really bad. And it's actually much harder to do that with red and near infrared light. It's possible if you do enough hours of it, you can certainly do that. You can certainly make yourself feel bad. But yeah, the dosage here is conservative. And I will say also that I've had a discussion with Michael Hamblin about this, and he's even less cautious than this. He would say you could go up to 30, 40 minutes, an hour, and you're probably not even going to be overdoing it if you double or triple the recommendations that I have laid out here. So my recommendations here are fairly cautious in that regard.
Thank you for explaining that.
So with all of that in mind, if you want to do this very simply, we've set up an ability to get a discount from Red Therapy Co. on the two lights that I personally had a hand in designing. As I said, Eric, the founder of Red Therapy Co., consulted me and asked me, exactly how to build the lights, the wavelengths, the spectrum, the pulsing. And pulsing, unlike most manufacturers, pulsing is built into this. This is another thing that we didn't have time to talk about. But basically, light can either be emitted constantly or it can be pulsing. Boop, 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 boop. And there's a number of studies that have shown that pulsed light output, as opposed to continuous wave output, constant light output, the pulsing actually increases the effectiveness, somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 15 to 30% improvements in the effectiveness. So he's built that into the system. He's also built in an iron-based internal shield to massively reduce the EMFs from these devices, which is also something that I had a hand in. And ultimately, I think these are the best lights on the market when all things considered. And of course, I would think that I'm biased since I had a hand in designing them. But they're amazing lights. And I know I'm the only person in the world right now that knows all the third-party lab data on all the different companies out there that have submitted to this third-party lab. And this is right at the top tier. There's 2 or 3 companies that have the highest light output of any different devices, and this is one of them. And this one has pulsing built into it, and it has very strong EMF protection built into it. So I can't recommend this device more highly to you. The Pulse 800 or the Pulse 400 are the ones we recommend. Laura has 2 Pulse 800s.
So they're Pulse 840s. So just so there's no confusion, it's a Pulse 840 behind me. And then there is a Pulse 840 Max, which is even more powerful. And they'll all be shown on the website, just so people don't get confused about what they're looking at. And then the little guy is right here on the floor next to me. And this is the 400. You can see it right here. And it says here on your slide, new for 22. That's because it came out in 22. You could say these 840s are new for 23 because he just had them put out on the market. And the other thing I want to share is price is much more affordable with Red Therapy Co. than any other company out there. His whole thing was, I want to do twice the strength for half the price. That's why we love Eric so much, is he's really putting out product that's exceptionally ahead of everyone else and affordable too.
So you guys can get a discount on this, 25 off the Pulse 400, $50 off the Pulse 840. Thank you for correcting me on that, Laura, and that he's brought the newest 2023 version to the market. The discount code to get it is Energy23. And, again, I just want to emphasize, like, if I were to summarize everything that I've gone over in this presentation, this isn't just some weird technology that, like, hey, this LED light is this crazy weird hack thing and manipulates your physiology to do these weird things. That it's actually the case that human beings require adequate amounts of red and near infrared light. We require it for our cells to function normally. It is an essential nutrient for our cells to express normal health. And we know that it affects everything from brain health to skin health to healing of all the tissues of our body, to muscular performance and recovery and adaptations to exercise and fat loss and muscle gain, and so much more, to our mood, to our energy levels. Like really, this is a reset for your mitochondria. And again, emphasizing what I said in the context of anti-aging, this is one of the most powerful technologies available for optimizing your mitochondrial health and the regenerative mechanisms, including stem cells, that slow down aging at a cellular level, that are ultimately your most powerful weapon in your arsenal to live a long life and have a long health span. You know, don't count on modern medicine to cure this or that disease with a drug. Do the work now to optimize your cellular and mitochondrial health to prevent those diseases and to extend your lifespan.
So good. So good. That is a perfect way to end this presentation. Hey, Ari, if you want to stop sharing screen, I just have a couple of questions for you. And my first question is, what's the benefit of doing this with two lights simultaneously? So this is one of the things you asked. You wanted Eric to create this ability for people. So Red Therapy Co. is what we're talking about. It's important to have two units. Why?
Why don't you back up and show people? So let's have you go back there, flip on both your lights. Okay. And then I'll talk through it and we can literally show people the visual of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Okay. Now face one of them. Just face one of them. Okay, and talk so we make sure that people are seeing you. You can hear me okay? You can see me okay? Okay, so she's got it shining, the one she's facing right now. Let's imagine only that one was there. Well, she's now only doing that side of her body. So her face, the front, her belly, her chest, and the front of her legs. Okay. And then if she wanted to also do her backside, she's got to now double the treatment time. So having two of these lights basically makes you way more efficient, where you can now do your whole body in half the time as it would take you to do with only one light. That's the main benefit. Is it's essentially the equivalent of one of the light beds that exist. There, for example, there's a company called I forget the company name, but the light bed is called Novothor, and there's lots of clinics around the world that have this light bed. It's like a tanning bed, but it's red and near infrared light therapy. And you lay down in it, and it's got lights on your top side and your bottom side. So it does your whole body at once. And it's amazing. Here's the big problem with it. It's over $100,000. What? It's the cost of a fancy sports car to get one of those light therapy beds. And this is the few $1,000, like what's the cost of this? It's like $3,000 or something like that. Anyway, it's 1/25th or 1/30th the cost of one of those light beds, and it's essentially, for the most part, the same thing. You're just not in a laying down position, but you're getting really the same basic benefit of one of those light therapy beds for, again, 1/25th or 1/30th the cost, for a very small amount of money instead of a small fortune.
Yeah, and that cost you just quoted is if you buy two, right? So you could go the route of get one and just spend 10 minutes front, 10 minutes back.
Totally.
And the small, now can you talk, my other question is, these panels behind me are stronger than the smaller one that I have right next to me on the floor here. So this guy is the 400 and these guys back here are the 840s. What does that mean to people?
Basically, what we're ultimately talking about is just how much of your total body can you do at one time. And the main thing here is just efficiency of time. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is an important issue, just because of ease more than anything. Like ease, how easy and time efficient it is to do something will greatly influence how likely you are to actually do it regularly.
Oh, totally. And if
you know something takes like half an hour to do, and oh, it takes 10 minutes to set the thing up, and to, like, and I've got to move it around, and I've got to set a timer in this position and then a timer in this position. Like, all of those dimensions to it make it way less likely that you will actually do it on a regular basis. So if something's easy and quick and it takes 5 minutes, if you can do 5 minutes and boom, you've got your whole body covered. And like, every time I go do my workout, I go and flip my red light therapy units on, like the ones you have. 5 minutes after workout, done. Super easy. If I have a smaller light, it's still totally possible to do it. And if you're on a budget, get the smaller light, because get what you can afford, basically, is the short version. If you can afford a larger light, if you can afford multiple lights, do that. If you can't, no big deal. You still get all the same benefits from the smaller light. It's just a question of, it takes longer to use it, and that's it. So you just got to use it for a longer period of time, use it on this part of your body, then on this part of your body, and so on. You can't do your full body, both sides, all at once in 5 minutes. That's all it amounts to, but you still get all the same benefits with a smaller light. And if that's all you can afford, don't feel bad at all. That's still an absolutely great option. I wouldn't recommend the really small lights, because you get to a point where it's just too inefficient. They're too weak, and they're covering too small of an area to really be meaningful. But the 400 is an awesome thing, and will still work exceptionally well. How big is it? Laura, can you maybe hold it up so people can see it?
And it's right here.
Yeah, so people can see it's like 2 feet tall.
To see, if I put it on my head, you can see it hits like my
yeah. So from 12 inches away, it'll cover basically your head, your whole frontal torso. It won't cover your legs, but it'll cover from your head to your belly button or so.
So with this one, what I do is I started out with this one. And this is the only one I had. I would sit in front of it cross-legged and sit in front of it so I could get the majority of my body, and then turn and get the back of my body. But I still couldn't get my whole body, right? It was still, there were still parts missing. Yeah.
So that's basically the gist of it. Is, again, anything from the 400 to the larger 840 panel, or to 2 840 panels. Essentially, again, it's just how much of your body can you cover at once? How easy and quick can the process be? But the 400, as you just showed, is plenty big. It's going to cover half your body at one time, and it's still fairly efficient to do it that way. Again, I wouldn't recommend the really tiny lights that a lot of companies are selling now, that are like for portable, for travel, for small parts of your body. Just get at least the 400 size. And you'll have a very efficient, very powerful anti-aging tool in your arsenal.
Excellent. So for everyone wanting to grab this, Red Therapy Co. has a link on the page where you're watching this interview. It's on all the pages of the summit to make it easy for you to get access to this. Clearly, as Ari has demonstrated throughout this presentation, is a company that he has had a hand in helping develop their products. We know they're safe. We know they're effective. We know they're honest, all those important things. And so you can get yours, and we'd love to hear back from you and hear how it goes too. So be sure to connect with us and let us know how you feel. I mean, just those few minutes that I was demonstrating this in front of you, I felt my whole body shift. It feels so good. It's really addicting. It's a healthy addiction. Thank you so much, Ari, for bringing your brilliance and expertise to this and making such a usable presentation that people can really understand so simply. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it always feels to me like I'm doing a disservice to the overall body of evidence, because, like I said, there's over 6,000 studies now on this, and for literally dozens and dozens of conditions and uses that I didn't even get to mention here. So the research is just so robust, and again, it works on all these different systems of the body, from the skin to the brain to the muscles to supporting fat loss to all these different benefits, because fundamentally it's just optimizing mitochondrial energy production and making your cells work better, whether it's thyroid cells or brain cells or muscle cells or skin cells. They work better when you give them the nutrients, the food nutrients and the light nutrients that they require to express optimal health.
Thank you so much, Ari. We'll end on that note. Until next time, everyone, take good care. Bye now.